This is Memories That Protect Me. It's a tower defense game with an extra dimension, and also my submission to the Bad Ideas Game Jam. In this video, I'll tell you about how I came to make this game, and what kind of things happened. Alright, in case you don't know, the Bad Ideas Game Jam is a game jam hosted by Johnny Razor. It's a month-long jam, and the thing that separates it from other game jams is that you have to make a YouTube short as a video pitch for the game you're making. Which was kinda perfect for me since I've already been making long-form videos, but I wanted to branch out the shorts. With that out of the way, it's time to move on to... Like most jams, the Bad Ideas Jam comes with a theme, which turned out to be outside the box. As soon as the theme was announced, I started brainstorming. Going into this, I already knew I wanted to make a game inspired by Plants vs Zombies. I've been a fan of this series, and especially at the time, I was playing this cool fan game called PvZ2 Gardenless, or Guard Endless? It's a weird name. Anyway, combined with the fact that the real PvZ franchise is in a bit of an undead state, it inspired me to make a PvZ style tower defense game. And after enough thinking, I settled on a twist to go with the theme. Okay, so the Plants vs Zombies type gameplay will all take place inside of a box. And to collect more sun, or whimsy as I will call them in my game, to place more units, you'll have to get out of the box to switch to 3D first person mode, and you'll swap between the two constantly. With that idea figured out, I started making a prototype. I usually only do 2D games, but making the 3D section wasn't too hard since I made this game called, The Battle of Poo Poo Bumface. Well, point is that I made a 3D first person game before. It's super simple, but also I was playing a lot of really fast-paced shooters at the time, so I might have made the sensitivity a little bit high for a tower defense game like this. Well, I thought it was fine, so it probably doesn't matter, right? But the 2D tower defense part was a little tricky. I'd never done a grid-based placing system, and I tried to follow some tutorials, but I got a bit impatient, so I made my own, probably pretty stupid way of doing it. Though my game engine of choice has this button node, which behaves how you'll expect. You press the button, it sends a signal, and you can make stuff happen from that signal. What I did was to keep track of what you have selected with this variable, like for example, this placeholder unit, and depending on what's selected, pressing this button will do a certain thing when pressed, like for example, create that unit on the button's position. This button will be one tile, and to make a full board of tiles, I just placed a crap ton of these buttons. This method does have some problems. It doesn't work with multiple tile big units, but thankfully there isn't a single planet in PvZ that's bigger than one tile, excluding this stupid corn guy, so it was fine enough. I also made two basic units, this water pistol guy who's like a pea shooter, and there's a simple attacker, and this one who's supposed to be a dandelion thing, though it kinda looks like a lollipop. It's the sunflower of this game, and it makes more whimsy that spawns in the 3D part. And finally for this week, I made a video pitch to showcase the idea. Here it is. Bad game idea. It's a tower defense game in the style of Plants vs Zombies. It has an innocent looking style that's kinda like an arts and crafts project. And at the start, it plays very straightforwardly. But turns out that entire thing was taking place inside the player character's imagination. And you can hop into the real world where you explore in first person. That's where you collect resources to buy more towers in the tower defense part. And you'll be switching between the two gameplay styles constantly, and neither of the two parts will pause while on the other part either. So you'll be building walls and slowing down enemies on the tower defense part so you can explore more in the first person part. And as you get further in the game, you'll also start seeing enemies on the real life part too. So even after you build a good defense, you'll never be quite safe. Now, I'll admit it was a pretty bold choice to release it in just the first week, so I couldn't really account for any changes I make to the idea. But making it early ended up being pretty good, specifically for me, since I get burned out on projects pretty fast and lose motivation easily. Getting some initial attention on the video really gave me the necessary pressure to keep going into the later parts of development. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just move on to This week was mostly about the more technical aspects of the game, like enemy spawning. See, the enemy themselves were simple to make. I made them these ghost thingies just so I don't have to animate a walk cycle, and they just move forward and attack anything in front of them. I also made some higher health variants too, but the difficult part was getting them to spawn in the way I wanted to. It would have been easy to just spawn random ghosts every few seconds, but in Plants vs Zombies, the way zombies spawn are designed by the developers, so the difficulty progression feels nice and smooth. Or rough, depending on how the level designers were feeling. Also, killing zombies makes the level progress faster, so there's no boring wait time between zombie spawns. And I wanted to replicate this system in my game too, which took me way longer than I thought it would. I had to spend almost the entire week fixing bugs that popped up. To put into perspective how annoying this was, I added this speed up feature taken from PC2 this week. Not to make the game more convenient or fast paced or anything, but just so I don't go insane while testing. But after more than a bit of trial and error, this is the system I ended up with. To make a level, I first set up a bunch of these wave resources that I made. Each wave has a list of numbers, each one corresponding to an enemy type. I also set how much time there is between spawns, and also how many wave points they require. These wave points are gained whenever a set amount of time passes, or an enemy is killed. Once you have more wave points than the wave's requirement, it actually starts spawning in the enemies from the wave. I feel like I said the word wave a lot, but that's the method I came up with. Like I said, it took me way too long to code this, but I did manage to get a few smaller things done this week. For starters, I added some music to the game. I always really liked interactive soundtracks, as in music that changes depending on what's going on in the game. PvZ does this as well, so I wanted to make my music interactive as well. So I thought for my game, it would be cool if I swapped between two versions of the same song whenever you switch worlds, since that's the main mechanic of this game. So I put my very amateur music skills to the test and made these two tracks. I tried to go for a creepy sort of vibe with the real world, and a fun and whimsical thing with the imaginary world. To go along with this, I also fleshed out the swapping itself. I created this little animation to work as a transition, and also to reinforce the idea that this imaginary world is actually taking place inside a box. Also, throughout testing the game, I realized that swapping whenever you want freely, letting you just playing the game like this, and diminishing the entire point of the gimmick. So I added a short cooldown to it, indicated by this progress bar? Is that a bar? Thing at the top right. So you have to play more strategic now. And I added proper labels that tell you how much whimsy you have, but also how much whimsy that you haven't collected, so it's easier to know when you should swap. Oh, one last thing, I added another dude you can place, called the Book of Comfort. He's a wall, pretty self-explanatory. I made some extra spikes to show how much damage he's taken, and I think it turned out pretty cute. Now let's move on to the main theme with this week was adding more units and levels to go along with them. For this game, I wanted to have you unlock a new thing after every level, like in the first PvZ, to make each level feel fresh. So firstly, I made it so killing the last enemy places unlocking animation, where a new unlocked thing is dropped. I then let you click on it to see some information, and proceed to the next screen. I also made it play a little tune when you do. Not as iconic as the... but it gets the job done. With that, I got right to adding a couple new units. The ones I added before were really basic, so for the new ones, I wanted to make them unique and actually interact with the real world, since that's what makes this game unique. So the first one I made is this candy fella called... His main function is that he boosts the attacking speed of attackers around him. It stacks too, so you can go pretty crazy if you have enough of them. But also, for each hyper you have in the field, you get a speed boost in the real world, so it's easier to collect whimsy. Next one is... This one acts kinda like the cherry bomb from PvZ, except it doesn't do much damage. but slows enemies down instead. And the way it affects the real world is that every time you use him, it makes these bubble platforms that I made appear, so you can use it to platform around the place. And then I made all the levels to go with them. For the first few levels that introduced the basic free, I made it so there's a reduced amount of lanes you can use, so it's easier to learn the game. But where it gets a bit more interesting is the levels I added for the 2 new guys. For Hyper, I made the real world have a really big room to encourage use of the speed boost. And for Bubble, I made these lava thingies that do damage when you step on them. And then I placed some bonus whimsy that you can only get by using my beautiful Bubble Boy to reveal this platform. And the last level I worked on this week was the most important one, the tutorial. I wanted this to leave a cool first impression while still teaching you the basics. So here's what I came up with. It starts off pretty much identical to the typical Plants vs Zombies type tutorial, only having 1 lane and 1 unit to work with. There's a bit of tutorial text telling you how to place stuff down. And then text explaining whimsy, but also says something about uncollected whimsy. As a player, you're probably like, oh, what's uncollected whimsy? How do I get that, right? And you're inevitably going to run out of whimsy to place more guys. And then the tutorial tells you how to swap, and boom, surprise 3D reveal. I swear it's cool in practice, okay? Anyway, there's one last thing I did this week, which is to make a new set of music for the later levels. I know I just made it last week, but I've been doing a lot of playtesting, and I've been getting sick of the first pair of music. Hey, random example, but you know those like really early development videos of Ultra Kill? You know, the one where the music is nothing but and it starts to drive you crazy after watching them for an extended amount of time? Yeah, I was getting that feeling. So I did the thing that seemed natural, which was to make some new music. At the time I decided this, there was also a different jam dedicated to music going on, hosted by YouTuber Brainless, so I thought I might as well make the new pair of songs a part of that as well. After some work, this is how it turned out. Aside from the excellent name, it didn't really do great in the jam, but it still did its job, so eh. Okay, next up. This is the last full week of the jam, so safe to say I was getting a little worried. Now, the first thing I did this week was to make an early demo version of the game. You see, up until this point, no one but me has actually played this game. So since I finished making the tutorial and a few levels, I just made some finishing touches, and then uploaded it as an early version to itch.io. This means if I ever happen to miss the deadline like last time, watch this video, I still have something you can play. After that, I made a little community post asking fellow jammers for feedback. There will be a few people kind enough to leave some comments, but until then, I worked on some other stuff, like another short video, to ask people for ideas since I was kinda running out of ideas for new unlocks. And I got a pretty cool suggestion to make the water pistols give you ammo to fight the real life version of enemies. Yeah, you remember that from a while ago? So for that, I first got to adding the enemies in 3D. I say 3D, but like I did with the Whimsy, it's just a billboarded 2D sprite. I quickly realized that there's no way to know when a ghost appears when you're in the imaginary world, so I made this ominous text appear, as well as a spooky sound effect whenever one spawns. And then I just reused the lava script to make him do damage, as well as make him walk towards you, and yeah, he was pretty much done. Speaking of, I don't think I actually explained how damage works in my game, did I? Well, it's not super complicated. You just have 3 hearts and any damage source reduces 1 heart, but also, having enemies make it all the way to the end in the 2D part will damage you too. And just so you can come back from the damage, will knock back other enemies that are close. Anyway, time to let you actually fight it back against these guys. After unlocking the Spirit Cannon, as I call it, in level 5, you can click on water pistols to extract their ammo. This will put them to rest for a while, so you'll have to be careful, but once you swap back to 3D, you can left click to shoot. It's a little finicky mechanics wise, but I thought it was fun. I made these chests too that you can shoot to get some whimsy. Though I forgot to tell the player about this, so no one will go to notice. Whoops. I'll admit the effects are pretty rushed, especially the shooting, since it was nearing the end of the week when I had a lot of work left. But again, it gets the job done. After that, I quickly tried applying most of the feedback I got from the early version. First of all, there are a few annoying visual bugs that needed fixing. I didn't think these would be too hard, but I came across this weird issue that I never heard of before. In specifically the web version of the game, random images, like the icon for Bubble Burst, will just turn completely blank. After a bit of research, I discovered that it had to do with the canvas sizes of these images. I don't know the technical reasoning behind this, but using image sizes that can be divided by 4 inside a web game causes it to appear blank. Most of my images were perfectly fine canvas size wise, but there were just a few ones that had really awkward sizes, like 148? So I fixed most of them by just re-exporting them in a standard size, but I actually ended up missing one in the final game. It's a minor one, but still, moral of the story, just be normal. Don't be like me, man. Just set a standard size for your images. The second piece of feedback I got was, I actually think I'm fine. Yeah, like it's not that bad, right? Third one is that the game could use some form of story, just so you're not thrown into the thing without context. I kinda wanted the story anyways, so I got right to work creating an intro cutscene. It's mostly just a bunch of text, since again, I don't have much time, but as for the contents, I've been sorta subconsciously building up this memory themes throughout development. Since this game's about a crafted world that takes place inside an imaginary land, I thought it would be fitting if all the units were based off childhood memories, and the main character is revisiting the crafted figures he made back then. That's why I made the units candies and water pistols and stuff. So it took a bit of time, but I managed to write a complete intro. And to end off this week, I decided to make one more unit to place in the level. So here is... It behaves very similarly to a water pistol, but it shoots twice and costs more. Yeah, this one's a bit lazy compared to the other ones. I had plans to make it do a special attack when you collect ammo from it, but I ended up not doing that. Alright, now let's cover the... So for the final few days of the jam, I decided to make one final level to put all the stuff you learned to the test. It has lava, these chest thingies, and of course, real world ghosts. But I also wanted a final special unit that you can unlock to use in this level. After some consideration, I thought the game lacked a lot of fun instant use guys, so here's what I call Peace Within Mind. As you can guess from the name, it makes peace in your imaginary world by blowing up every single enemy on the screen. So essentially, it's Doomshroom from Plants vs Zombies. Just so it's a bit more balanced, it doesn't quite one-shot these level 3 enemies though. And like Doomshroom, he also comes with a drawback. Whenever he's used, you get sent straight back to the real world, whether you like it or not. And you had to wait extra time to swap back, so you had to consider when it's safe to use him. And you might think that this is some kind of metaphor, but trust me, it's not. I just wanted to reuse the swapping code. As well as that, I made an ending cutscene. It's very similar to the intro, so thankfully it was pretty easy to make. And using the rest of my time, I tried my best to polish up the game and make it feel more complete, mainly by adding more props and decorations to the real world. Throughout these past few weeks, I actually tried making my own 3D models to use as props. But not only was I really bad at it, for most of the stuff I made, I couldn't even export them properly. So with time running out, I decided to just use a free furniture pack by Cake It. It turned out pretty well, so I guess I can't complain. After that, I just updated the game's itch.io page with new cover art and all that, and finally, the game was actually done. Alright, before I cover where I placed in the rankings, I want to showcase the feedback I got after release and my conclusion. Overall, people seem to like the game. I got some nice comments regarding the in-the-box art, the dimension-swapping twist, and general vibes, but it also had a lot of glaring issues. First of all, I completely forgot to add any kind of pause function, which on its own isn't a complete deal breaker, but because of this funny little feature I put in for testing, pressing the escape key, you know, the thing you'll expect to pause the game, instead tries to make you quit, which doesn't even work properly, so it just freezes the game and you have to reboot the entire thing. What's worse is that there isn't any way to select which level to start on, so I had to replay the entire game all over. Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. And another point, fine, I'll admit it, the sensitivity was way too high. I was stubborn, okay, fine. And finally, a lot of mechanics were really underexplained. Aside from the tutorial at the beginning, your only source of information for understanding mechanics are these really brief descriptions you get at the end of the level screen, which is just too little for how complicated the game can get. The worst offender of this was the Spirit Kit, which a lot of people just couldn't understand how to use, and because of that got stuck on around level 6, due to not being able to deal with the 3D enemies. It really sucks that a lot of these problems could have been fixed without too much effort if I was more careful. But with that in mind, my final ranking out of the 524 entries that ended up in the jam is 83rd place. Honestly, I'm really happy with the placement. It might not blow people away, but it's easily the best I've done it in a game jam of this scale. And I've even got 58th in enjoyment, which is really cool. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but if your game's in the top 100, it gets played by all the judges, which means I actually got to see my game played by Johnny himself, as well as all the other judges. Except for Dano. He wasn't on the stream because...
Yeah, Dano died yesterday. He died, and he's not coming back.
But anyway, here are some of my favorite clips on the stream.
Unharvested Whimsy. If only I could harvest the Whimsy.
Plus control to swap between dimensions.
What
Whoa!
the? Whoa!
Whoa! Whoa!
Oh, my sensitivity is so high.
Are you guys a flowers on the left truther?
Oh, I am such a flowers on the left truther.
I know that's I know people
my
debate
strat.
about that.
People
I
wait,
haven't
people
played
debate
enough
about it?
Plants vs. Zombies.
You do-
Yeah,
Two
people
rows-
debate.
You do 2 rows of flowers, so then you have your production in the back line.
People
Is that what they do?
people argue that they put the flowers on the right, so it's like a defense mechanism. Because the flowers don't do anything, like it's a wall.
No, but they take time to produce, so you need to give them the time to produce.
I'm just saying it's something people believe in.
Uh-oh.
People can
I don't
be
have
wrong.
a stake in this.
People can be wrong.
And that's it for this video. I'm just gonna ask you to do the usual YouTube stuff, you know, like, subscribe, blah 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 blah. You can play the game in the description, and I'll see you next video, probably. Bye!